Hello, everyone. Let me first of all briefly introduce myself. So, I had been working at the Russian Academy of Sciences for more than 10 years until the last year. And then I decided to spend my sabbatical year studying energy economics at University College London. And my current project as a student is devoted to comparative cradle-to-gate environmental life cycle assessment of Russian LNG and pipeline gas with delivery to China. So today's presentation is a kind of introduction and the attempt to analyze the current situation and prospects of China's gas market from the point of energy security. Now, let me share the screen with you. And important disclaimer at the beginning. So all the estimates were made based on existing statistics and recent developments with COVID-19 outbreak and the expected economic recession will no doubt have a profound impact on the market. So let me make this important assumption that if not within this timeline, with 2 to 3 years from now, in the worst case scenario, we still can expect economic recovery and further developments of trend I'm going to discuss in this presentation. So today I'm not going to talk about China's Belt and Road Initiative itself or Belt and Road Energy Partnership, though if you are interested, I provided some sources. Also, pipeline infrastructure is already a part of the belt, which refers to the overland routes. I put this title to emphasize the role of pipelines as opposed to LNG in implementing China's energy security strategy. So today we will discuss the following 3 questions. What are the patterns of China's energy consumption? What are the main energy security issues in China and how they are addressed? And we will also look at Sino-Russian energy cooperation. So what are the characteristics of China's energy mix transformation? Starting from the early 2000s, energy consumption in China has been growing fast, but if you compare per capita energy consumption with other countries, especially countries in the developed world, you will see that this is still low in China. This is the major reason why experts expect the demand for energy to grow. Electricity consumption, for example, will double by 2040, according to the International Energy Agency. Which sources are there to satisfy that growing demand? If we look at primary energy consumption, which consists of electricity plus heat plus transportation, coal remains the major source. The amount of coal consumed by 2040, according to BP, will reduce by 25%. Coal will be replaced mainly by renewables, energy, nuclear power, and natural gas. The expected increase in low-carbon energy sources consumption is driven mainly by environmental concerns. Indeed, the share of these sources, natural gas, renewables, and nuclear power, has been growing over the last 10 years. While oil and hydro are plateauing, the share of gas, renewables, and nuclear is rising in an attempt to replace coal, and the share of gas has increased up to 7.5%. In China, gas is used mainly in industry and buildings. Power generation is on the 3rd place. And industry will remain a driver for gas consumption growth in China, first of all due to the development of chemical and manufacturing sectors. In buildings and power sector, it will support the ongoing coal to gas switch. Although natural gas production has been growing during the last 20 years, it doesn't satisfy the growing demand. By 2009, The country had become a net gas importer. Since then, China's consumption trebled while import increased 15 times. And this gap between the demand and production is expected to grow, which means that the import is to grow too. And how do different sources and means of transportation influence China's energy security? Gas can be delivered to China by pipelines or as LNG. In 2018, China became the second largest LNG importer after Japan. And here is the map of the main routes of LNG imports. On the way to China, LNG carriers have to pass through several bottlenecks. The main of them is Malacca Strait. It is the shortest route between the Indian and Pacific Oceans, an important transit route for LNG imports, particularly from Qatar. The dependence from this route is called the Malacca Dilemma. It is one of the major issues for China's energy security. Now let's look at the energy security scale proposed by this Norwegian researcher. Indeed, the Western way of ensuring energy security is based on the global nature of the energy market. But is it true for China that supplying energy resources by sea is a safer option than import by pipelines? Not necessarily. But at least we can agree that at uncertain times, sea routes are the most insecure. And when I analyzed China's import by pipeline and LNG, I noted that Beijing doesn't rely on one or another option. Even given LNG available on demand on the global market, China puts great economic and political efforts into developing inland pipeline infrastructure, getting access to oil and gas fields, and acquiring shares in companies all around the world. As a result, looking at imports dynamic, we can see a kind of spiral similar to DNA. In 2018, China imported 60% as LNG. Among the main suppliers are Australia, Qatar, Malaysia, and Indonesia, and 40% was imported by pipelines. So far, Turkmenistan ensures the major part of piped gas for China. By pipelines, natural gas can be supplied from three directions. The one that I've already mentioned, from the west, from Central Asia, mainly from Turkmenistan. And the southern direction is represented by the port in Myanmar and China-Myanmar gas pipeline. And Russia obviously provides the northern access. What is the dynamics and prospects of Sino-Russia energy cooperation? Well, Russian Gazprom had been in negotiation with Chinese companies about gas sales to China since 2004, but it wasn't until 2014 when the contract between CNPC and Gazprom was signed. The gas supply via the Power of Siberia began in December 2019. With the planned year-to-year increase, Power of Siberia should deliver 38 BCM per year over 30 years from East Siberian gas fields. Here is the timeline indicating major energy deals between Russia and China during the last 12 years. Russia's gas export to China may expand beyond the Power of Siberia link with new LNG supply, the long-time discussed Power of Siberia 2 and now Trans-Mongolian pipeline, and potential expansion of supply via Power of Siberia. The estimates of the future supply from Russia to China vary significantly, from 65 to 110 and even to 130 BCM per year by late 30s. If, as projected, by 2040, China will import about 370 BCM per year, Russia potentially can ensure up to one-third of this volume. Will China agree to have such a high dependency from one country? but it already does, with Australia and Turkmenistan delivered 26 and 27% of the total China's import in 2018. Energy consumption in China is expected to grow, and so does natural gas, as it serves as an alternative to coal or oil depending on the sector we're looking for. China will increasingly rely on import to meet its demand. In 2018, China became the second largest LNG importer, and in order not to expose itself to certain energy security risks, Beijing aims to diversify sources and ensure safer ways for their transportation. And as we saw, one of the approaches is developing inland pipeline infrastructure. This long-term view is based on before COVID-19 assumptions. In the light of the pandemic outbreak and decreasing demand, the future of energy supply and LNG in particular remains unclear. The demand for LNG in China in the short term will flatten, or which is more likely decline. Given the over-reliance of LNG exporters on China, its strategic choices will affect the established situation in energy markets. At the same time, with today's prices, serious disruption may arise on producers' side as well, leading to the lack of supply when eventually it is needed. In this case, both exporting and importing countries will need to find a new equilibrium. Well, thank you for your time and attention. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me by email or via social media. And yes, thank you very much for your attention once again. And bye-bye. Have a nice day.